And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. I'm Chip Patterson. It is bowl season daily. Happy Thursday morning to you and yours. It is New Year's Eve. Pop that socially distanced bubbly. Enjoy the strange virtual in whatever enjoyment you got going on. I hope it is safe and I hope it is happy. We do have for your bowl season daily 3 games on the slate for the 21st. Unfortunately, we do not have the Texas Bowl as our nightcap. No Arkansas TCU. So you can, whatever your New Year's Eve television of choice is, maybe you're still watching the MTV New Year's Eve, right? Like, shout out to our Viacom partners. What's
Carson Daly up to now?
Maybe you're watching Carson Daly's MTV New Year's Eve with Blink 182 playing at halftime to ring in the year
TRL Studios.
But you'll have that opportunity. We don't have football, but we've got Mississippi State and Tulsa is going to be your noon game. We are on CBS with the Arizona Bowl, Ball State and San Jose State. And then the afternoon game will be the AutoZone Liberty Bowl from Memphis, West Virginia, and Army. Let's start with the Armed Forces Bowl, Tulsa, Mississippi State. The just killer defensive battle that we've got right here. And the over-under is set at 45. Right now, we're looking at a line that is like Tulsa's slight favorite. This Mississippi State team did not win many games, like 3-7 team going up against the runners up in the American Athletic Conference. But Tulsa also has not been a team really built to score a whole bunch of points either. I mean, am I just being too lazy to walk into this and just think it's going to be just exactly what we'd want in terms of all the ingredients for a good under to sweat out to start my December 31st?
No, I feel like they misscheduled this game. This game should have been played tomorrow morning. This is like the game that you're supposed to wake up on New Year's Day.
Hungover.
Kind of cloudy, hungover, just kind of groggy, turn it on, and the game looks exactly the way you feel. So, I think this is going to be, I mean, I'm not expecting this to be a high scoring, fun kind of affair, although there is a somewhat kind of concern because like it is a Mike Leach team and you never know. Maybe Mississippi State's offense has finally figured things out and they get things going and they just take off against this Tulsa team that will be without Zaven Collins. But like if you listen to Mike Leach at press conferences, he hasn't been shy the last few weeks. Shocking, I know. Mike Leach not being shy, sharing his opinions, but he's been saying, he's like, this season sucked. He's hated every part of the season. He's like, they've ruined the season by not just letting us do whatever the hell we want with these kids at any time we feel like it. And he says it sucked the joy out of it. So I think Mike Leach is probably at a position where he just wants to get this season done with. I think that if you look at the roster, what they've dealt with in the quote unquote, the purge, I wouldn't be surprised if whoever's left on that roster just wants to get the season done with. And if you're Tulsa, you're coming in, you're ranked. You don't have your best player on defense, but you were a very good team in the American Athletic Conference. And you're presented with an opportunity to finish your season with a win over an SEC team. Granted, it's not a good SEC team, but it is an SEC team. So as far as motivation goes, I'm leaning towards Tulsa here, but as far as the total goes, I think the safest play, I'm with you, is I would probably go under because, again, these are not two very exciting offenses, and they haven't really been at any point this year except for like that first game of the year against LSU.
And Tulsa, like, they absolutely are in they post to be SEC type position. Like it does not matter that Mississippi State is only 3-7. They are an SEC team. They would love to be able to boast about this. Philip Montgomery started the season on the hot seat. And now all of a sudden he's got this team playing for an American Athletic Conference championship, playing it close against Cincinnati. They only lost that game by a field goal, got a great defense, which is very much against what we had come to expect. Montgomery had a 10-win season early in his tenure, came in as an offensive coordinator from Baylor. So we were thinking wide open offense, but I think the stories have been more encouraging and uplifting from Tulsa. I think that there is definitely a motivation angle for Tulsa, but the side that I want absolutely without a doubt is going to be on the under.
Yeah, because like if you look at their offensive performances on the season, they put up 34 points against UCF, but UCF's not a very good defense. They put up 42 against USF. USF's a horrible defense. They put up 34 on ECU. ECU is a bad defense. Like they've had good games against bad defenses offensively. Just when they've run into good or above average defenses, they haven't. And this is a Mississippi State team which been good defensively all year long. So yeah, I think the under is the smartest play here. It's probably, you know, honestly, it probably won't get all that uncomfortable. And if it does, it'll probably be done by the second quarter. You know what I mean? You'll know quick.
Hey, how about in Zaven Collins with his penchant for pick sixes? It's almost like he's worth a point or two on the total, not having him out there because he does a good job for scoring for Tulsa as well. 2:00, that will be the time. Tom, you're going to be 145.
Yep.
CBS Sports HQ, cbssportshq.com. Catch it on your mobile app. If you're streaming the game, which you can do on the CBS Sports mobile app or on cbssports.com, Tom will be on the pregame show. San Jose State and Ball State, a pair of conference champions. They're having awesome seasons. You know, Ball State having the most amount of success, first outright conference championship since the 90s, being led by a former Ball State quarterback. A lot of good sort of, I think our old colleague Tony Moss is probably through the roof with what Ball State is doing right here. San Jose State, great story with Brent Brennan. They had to bail from the county because of some of the restrictions just to be able to get the season started. Had a little bit of a traveling road show, and now the Spartans are in a position to finish the season undefeated for the first time since before World War II. San Jose State, a 9.5-point favorite here, over under around 64. You were on Ball State against Buffalo. You definitely sniffed that one out. You were also on Boise State against San Jose State. So what have we learned about both these teams?
What I've learned is I'm yet to be right on the San Jose State game yet this season. This is, I mean, the Spartans had a terrific season. They're undefeated. You said it. They won the Mountain West. Brent Brennan was in line for the Arizona job, or he was mentioned for the Arizona job, but he's coming back, so that's good for San Jose State. Nick Starkel, kind of like, based on what we'd seen from Nick Starkel at previous stops in his career before he ended up out west, wasn't too optimistic about his chances with this offense, but he's played really well. And this is a team, you know, they've won every single game. It's just when I watch them, there's something missing. It's like they're not a dominant team. They're a good football team, and they've won their games. But if you look at the scores of their games, you know, they beat Air Force by 11, New Mexico by 17, San Diego State by 11, UNLV by 17, Hawaii by 11, Nevada by 10, Boise by 14, all comfortable wins. But they haven't blown anybody out either, which says that they're missing kind of that extra gear that you like to see. And this is a Ball State team that I think just kind of was ignored. Like before, the MAC season was very short, but before the season began, I had Ball State as like one of my teams to win the conference. Like it was between Ball State and Buffalo were my two favorites to win it. And what do you know? They both ended up in the MAC title game, and Ball State won. And this is a Ball State team that it kind of flew under the radar because it lost its opener. Like it lost its first game against Miami of Ohio.
But one touchdown.
Yeah. But like with the MAC season being so short, and with Buffalo having been so dominant, and Kent State having such a prolific offense, and you kind of just didn't pay anything like a bit of attention to Ball State. And then they won the rest of their games, and they came into that championship game. And I think this is it's not a great team. It's not a dominant team. I think San Jose State's the better football team, but it's a very well-rounded team. Like there's not a glaring weakness with this Cardinals team. Offensively, they're solid. Defensively, they're solid. Special teams, you know, they're solid for a MAC team anyway. And I think that just kind of lays where I look at the situation. You know, you see that number next to San Jose State's name, and you see that, you know, the 24, it's in the college football playoff rankings. It's so many times when it comes to these bowl matchups where there's so much more public action, those numbers kind of tilt lines. And I look at the situation and I'm like, yeah, San Jose State is better than Ball State. Is it nearly 10 points better? I don't think so. I think this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a fun game, and I think the Spartans will win. But I think Ball State is going to stay within range and cover. And as far as the total is concerned, I don't know. I don't have a great feeling. I feel like 63.5 is probably 64 is probably exactly where this game is going to end up. It's going to be like a 34-30 kind of game. So I don't have a great lean on the total either side, but I think that I'm definitely going to be on the Ball State side of the spread.
I am absolutely on the Ball State side of things, maybe under, but I do not feel as confident about that as I do with the Ball State. And I've got to say, all they did was like win. Like they lost by 1 touchdown to Miami of Ohio, but then they beat Eastern Michigan by 7, beat Northern Illinois by 6, beat Toledo by 3, like beat Western Michigan by 3. They figured out ways. They figured out ways to get it done. And you mentioned the San Jose State results with all those double-digit wins. They trailed in the second quarter of the Nevada game, the San Diego State game, and one other. It might have been UNLV. They needed some big-time second-half comebacks to be able to get those wins.
So maybe something to keep in mind at halftime. You're looking to make a live wager. Maybe take a look at that the second half line, and that might be when you want to jump on San Jose State, especially if it's a close game in the first half or if Ball State's winning, especially.
And stop the presses. Tom Fornelli is with the MAC team.
Yeah, it is. It's, I mean, the MAC does not tend to do well in bowl games.
Yeah, I know. I understand. I totally understand. You're like, yeah, I know they're good.
This matchup, the spread's too big. It's too close of a matchup to be this big.
Yep. All right. I'm with you, Ball State. And then we will, after we are done there, we can take our attention over to West Virginia and Army in the Liberty Bowl. We're in Memphis. A little bit of rain, maybe. Yeah, a little bit of rain. Over under at 41. West Virginia -6.5. You mentioned on the Locks pod, and again, like, our locks, they cover all of today's games. You also got Danny and Barton on there. They cover all of January 1 and January 2, those college football playoff semifinals. Make sure you go and get those from the Locks pod. You had a really good line about how Neil Brown probably was pretty excited. Like I took it as he was excited to be the hero and be like, yes, we, West Virginia, will bring the United States Military Academy into the bowl season. But you seem to think it's because he likes the matchup.
Yeah, this is a good win for West Virginia. As far as Army is concerned, this is probably, there are some opponents. I mean, most Power 5 teams Army's going to lose to, if we're being blunt. It's just, this is like an awful matchup. Like, if I'm Army, I want to be facing a team that has had problems stopping the run. I don't want to face one of the best run defenses in the country. And West Virginia has been one of the best rush defenses in the country, whether you want to go by the old school yards per carry, or if you want to look at rushing success rate, the Mountaineers are good in all of them. And this is an Army team that, even by its own standards, it hasn't been that good running the ball this year. It has been a substandard Army offense. We've seen it go through numerous quarterbacks and have struggled finding a guy. They've been using a limited playbook due to the inexperience that they have at the quarterback position, which makes them far easier to prepare for, because, when you face an option offense, there's a lot of things that go outside the realm of what you typically face as a defense. And there's a lot of different assignments and a lot of different things you have to do. But if you know that your opponent is in a position like Army, where they're really only running a small portion of their playbook, and you've been able to watch a couple of tapes of some games, you know what's coming at you most of the time. And now the question is just going to be whether you can stop it. And I think West Virginia's got the front seven that can stop it. And then also, like you mentioned, weather-wise, it's going to be windy, and it's supposed to be raining through most of this game. It's going to be kind of chilly. And when it comes to option offense, is one of those things that you always have to worry about with all the handoffs and this, the mesh points, the pitches. Ball control and holding on to the ball is tough in an option offense. You see a lot of option offenses fumble the ball more often than you see other teams do. So now that ball is going to be wet. And I worry about Army turnovers in this situation, kind of burying them. So I really like West Virginia here. It was one of my locks on the pod. It is the lock of the week in this week's 6-pack. I am all over the Mountaineers. It's the only scary part is West Virginia's offense at times does tend to disappear. It's just defensively, I don't think Army's going to be able to stop it.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say West Virginia's defense is so good that it's like, even if you've got a couple 3-and-outs, like even if you've got a couple of limp possessions, I don't know, man. I kind of feel like West Virginia will be able to give the ball right back.
I kind of like the over here too. I just think it's too low. Yeah. It's getting lower. It's like, okay, if it's at 41.5, 41, if this thing gets down to 40.5, I would be all over the over.
Never. He's picking a MAC team and he's taking an over in the 40s. Tom Fornelli trying out new things.
2020.
Open-minded here at the end of 2020 here on the final day. So again, to review, you got Tulsa, Mississippi State. We like the under and maybe lean Tulsa. We got Ball State, San Jose State. Strongest feelings for Ball State, and then West Virginia Army, West Virginia, and maybe the over, especially if it continues to drop. He is Tom Fornelli. You can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. We will be back tomorrow. Get all that sleep out of your eyes when you've been done partying with Carson Daly at the TRL New Year's Eve on MTV. And we will be getting you set bowl season daily back on Friday, January 1. Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you.